Hello everyone, good day. My name is Samuel Jetro Atalati, and then today we are going to talk about the effective rate of interest, which I talked about in our last video, which is the interest accumulation part one. You can check it out, and you have to check it out before you come here because you really need some stuff there before you can really understand this part. Okay, so this is the outline that we will be talking about, which is the effective rate of interest. So at the end of the video, I'm expecting everyone to understand the effective rate of interest. Okay, so today I have a motivational quote for you, and the motivational quote is success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out, right? Said by Robert Kohler. Okay, so irrespective of the effort that you are putting in, right? You just don't say you are not doing anything. The sum of this effort is really going to make you who you want to be at the end of the day. So keep on doing it and then you can make it. Okay, so let's start why we are here today. So the effective rate of interest. So assuming I put 100 Ghana cedis, right, in an account, right, and then at the end of year one I had 110 Ghana cedis. What is the amount of interest? The amount of interest becomes 10 Ghana cedis because I only invested 100 Ghana cedis. So the amount of interest becomes 10 Ghana cedis. Now, since the amount of interest is 10 Ghana cedis, for me to get the rate of interest, I just divide the amount I invested by the amount of interest, which is the amount of interest, which is 10 divided by 100, which is going to give me what? The annual effective rate of interest, right? So to determine the effective rate of interest, you just divide the amount you invested, which is the principal, right, by the amount of interest, right? So let's go to the formal definition of the effective rate of interest, right? So this is the formal definition of the effective rate of interest, and it says the effective rate of interest is the amount of money that one unit invested at the beginning of a period will earn during the period where interest is paid at the end of the period, right? So these some notes that you also have to take into consideration. One thing that you have to know is that the term effective is used for rate, right, in which interest is paid once per measurement period, right? There are interests which are paid nominal, which is the semi-annual, and then the monthly and stuff. We talk about that one in our next video, so you have to watch the video so that you understand all those stuffs. And then most of the time, the effective rate of interest is expressed as percentage, and then the amount of principal remains constant throughout. So these are things that you have to know before you can understand the effective rate of interest, right? Now, in our last video, we talked about the amount function and the accumulation function. So I expect you to understand this part, right? Because there are things that you have to know there. The small a of t is the accumulation function, and then the capital A of t is the amount function, right? So the capital A at time 1 minus the capital A at time 0 is the amount of interest. We also talk about that in our last video, so you check it out. And that's why we have I1 over A0, which A0 is the amount of principal, right? The amount you invested in, right? That's how to find what the effective rate of interest, right? So to find the effective rate of interest, the amount of interest over the amount of principal, right? That's what is going to give you what the effective rate of interest, right? So this was English and this was mathematics. So just pay attention to that and then you are free to go. Okay. So there is an alternate definition for it, which is the effective rate of interest is the amount of interest earned during the period divided by the amount of principal invested at the beginning of the what period, right? So you just have to know those stuff too, right? So as I said in the last page, I said the effective rate of interest is the amount of interest earned during the period divided by the amount of principal at the beginning of the period, right? So the effective rate of interest does not have the same for each period, right? So this is at time n. The effective rate of interest at time 1 cannot be the same, might not be the same at time 2, might not be the same at time 3. So the n represents the number of what years. It might be 1, 2, 3, or 4. So this is the general formula to find the effective rate of interest at a specific time, right? So you can use the amount function, and then you can use what, the accumulation function. Everything works when it comes to the effective rate of interest, right? So we have an example here, and then the example is an account is credited with interest at an effective rate of I. You can read the question. Always I expect you to read the question and then understand the question, solve it yourself. When you get it wrong, you check the video and then you go right, and then you check whether you're right or wrong, and then you learn something from it. Okay, so this is the question. You can read the question. At time 0 the balance is there, at time 1, and then at time 2 the balance is 583.90. right? So to calculate one, you have to calculate the effective rate at time 1 and at time 2, and then you see whether the accumulative is constant effective rate, right? So that we'll talk about it. So this is how to solve it. As I said, I1, which is A1 minus A0 divided by A0, right? This is the amount function, right? So this is the amount invested at time 1, amount invested at time 0, right? So the amount invested at time 1 minus the amount invested at time 0 gives us the amount of interest, right? Divided by the principal, which is the amount invested at time 1. And that gives us what? 6%, right? So the amount invested at time, sorry, the effective rate for time 2, that is the amount invested at time 2 minus the previous amount, which is at time 1. Okay, so this gives us what? This, and then this, and then when you punch that on your calculator, you are going to get 10.17%. Please check it on your calculator for me, and then when I'm wrong, you tell me in the comment section, which I will attend to you. Any problem that you are finding, you just text me on the comment section, and then I promise I'll get back to you. Okay, so at the end of the day, we learned something, right? We learned something. So we learn what? At the end of the day, we learned that the effective interest rate. We learned that the effective interest rate measures how much an investment grows from T n minus 1, and then sorry, okay. So the rate we learned that the effective rate of interest IN measures how much an investment grows from n minus 1 to n. That is the previous amount to the current amount. Okay, and then this is how it is calculated. Please, you have to know this formula. Anytime you are asked to find the effective rate of interest at a specific time, right, or at a certain point in time, you just have to know. Okay, now the rate does not have to be constant, right? So it doesn't have to be constant throughout. It might be 10, 15, 3, 2, 1, any percentage. Okay, all right? So when the rate differs, we calculate this separately for each year, right? So when the rate for time 1 is different from time 2, you have to calculate for each rate separately. And then the last one is, if the rates are constant, the procedure reduces the standard compound interest, right? It reduces to standard compound interest, which means that when you calculate for the interest at time 1, and it's the same at time 2, it's the same at time 3, and it's the same at time 4, you have to know that the interest is what? A compound interest. And then we will talk about the compound interest. The compound interest, the compound interest is what do I say? It's constant throughout. It's the same for time 1, 2, 3, and so on. Okay, so that's what we learned for the day. Please, when you find it very fast, you just pause the video and then go through it. Okay, the slides are really understandable, please, and then you can understand it. Thank you.